And you are listening to Christian Outdoors Podcast with your host, Pete Rogers. This is episode number 325. On this week's episode of Christian Outdoors, we have with us the founder of Soul Seekers Podcast. His name is Johnny Mack, and he's from Washington State, but he relocated to Texas 3 years ago. And Johnny's one of those people who didn't get started into hunting until he was later in life. Actually, he was age 30 years old when he went to his hunter education class in the state of Washington. And it was 4 years later before he was able to actually get his first animal, which was a black bear in the mountains of Washington. I haven't even taken a black bear, so good for you on that, Johnny. He knew that there had to be others just like him looking for community of support, and knowing firsthand how intimidating and challenging learning how to hunt can be, he created the podcast called Soul Seekers to spread his mission of mentorship and his conservation in order to inspire and support others along the way. When he's not in the woods, he's enjoying the outdoors. You can find him spending time with his family. He's married to his wife, Megan, and they have 3 young boys who are now being raised in the lineage of hunters. Please welcome to Christian Outdoors Podcast, Mr. Johnny Mack, the host of Soul Seekers Podcast. This show is being brought to you by Taurus USA, the leading manufacturer for reliable, affordable firearms for personal protection, hunting, and sport shooting. Now, having been a fan and user of Taurus handguns for decades, whether it's my everyday carry G4 or one of the 1911 models, or even one of their incredible hunting revolvers, Taurus is the best handgun on the market today, and you can find out more on how reliable Taurus is at taurususa.com. All right, everyone, as I said in the introduction, I have with me today the locally famous and the legend himself, Mr. Johnny Mack, who is the host and founder of Soul Seekers Podcast. And he's been out there about as long as I have, maybe a little bit longer. We'll find out more about that in a little bit. But Johnny, thank you for joining us. Let's start the show by telling the audience about yourself.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me on. Those of you who are hearing my name for the very first time, thank you for tuning in this episode. I'm Johnny Mack. I am a father of 3 young boys, 10 and under, husband to a wonderful, beautiful wife, and a school teacher by trade.
Okay.
Originally from the state of Washington, and relocated my family kind of like a reverse pioneer down to the state of Texas. This June will be 3 years ago. Never even been to the town that we moved to. Never even seen it, anything. Just, we got to get out of the state of Washington, put our finger on a map, and we took off.
Wow.
Believer in taking care of my responsibilities and my family is my responsibility. And what we were experiencing in the state of Washington is not what I wanted. And so we were searching for a little more freedom and sovereignty. And I think we found that down here in the great state of Texas. So
yeah, you can't go wrong going south.
No, not
you can't go wrong going south. Right. Good. Well, thank you for joining me here on Christian Outdoors Podcast, Johnny. I'm excited to find out more about you. One of the things I said in the introduction was that you came into hunting later in life. I think it was age 30 when you took your hunter ed course. So what was it that precipitated that at that stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we got to take a step back further on, and really, it's like the story of my life, because that sets up the stage for a lot of things. That why I believe hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure.
Okay.
Hunting is a conduit for change and personal growth and development and connection with God, nature, community. All that stems from the courage to try something new, the courage to go into the unknown. So my childhood, I was raised the youngest of 2 boys in the state of Washington by a father who is very well known in the state of Washington, High School Football Hall of Fame. I've had friends of mine tell me that my dad is responsible for their lives and their successes and their marriages and a lot of amazing things. Sports was life in my house growing up. My dad was a high school football coach, high school basketball, high school baseball. I was the all-American kid. I grew up, we went to church, I played sports, I did the right thing, I got good grades. But I was a scared little boy. I was
Mm.
afraid. And I was afraid of the dynamic in which I had. From the outside, my house looked amazing. From the inside, there's a lot of turmoil going on. And I don't cast blame or shame on anyone else other than my story is my story and my experience has led me to where I am. And so
Right.
I grew up in this household where, sports was life and that's what you did. And I never really was asked, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to experience? What is it that you want to accomplish with your life?
Yeah.
And so, I was an athlete in high school. I never really enjoyed school, although I got good grades, but I wanted to continue playing sports. And so I ended up getting college scholarships to play football. And if it wasn't for football, I never would have even gone to college, which is ironic. So
Yeah.
when I get to college, it's like, oh man, you got to get a degree. What are you going to get a degree in? I was like, well, I love sports. I might as well get a degree in teaching physical education. And then I can continue that on and enjoy this life of sports because that's all I knew. My
Right.
father was a teacher, my father was a coach, and all this. And well, it turns out I was becoming my father's like mini me, I was his legacy. And
Mhm.
as cool as that is, I found no identity in myself. I felt like I was always making choices for other people. And obviously hindsight's 2020 and I'm a lot older now and wisdom comes with that. And I
Mhm.
don't have regrets because all the decisions I've made have gotten me to where I am in my life today.
Right.
And I would probably go about things a little differently knowing what I do now. But with that being said, I was sports, figure it out. And then I always loved the outdoors. I loved backpacking. I loved camping. My dad did teach me how to fish. I loved to go fishing. I loved shooting, but no one ever taught me gun safety. I got a
Yeah.
Red Ryder BB gun when I was young, and I used to run around in the backyard pretending to play cowboys and Indians and chase the imaginary bad guys of my youth. And
Hmm.
that was like my escape from the turmoil of my youth and my household.
Hmm.
And so I disassociate and I go off into my own mental world and I'd always want to challenge my grit and my determination and be like, there's more to this life than what I'm experiencing. Because what I found out is, and how this all ties into me getting into hunting, is I lacked courage. I lacked courage because I was fearful of the repercussions I was going to be getting when I was at home if I stepped out of line, if I didn't do the exact perfect thing or show up the way that my parents, specifically my father, expected me to be
Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
to chase perfection. And I have a lot of failures in my life. And as even today, as a 40-year-old man, I find myself feeling like I lack certain skills. And I'm now kind of really coming into that conclusion of like, man, I wish I would have had a mentor in my life to
Hmm.
really guide me, show me, walk with me, right?
Hmm.
And so I ended up getting into school teaching. Ended up coaching high school football with my father. I was going to take over his program. Like everything is just
Yeah.
handed down. And one day I was like, I've always wanted to hunt. Always wanted to hunt. And if I don't finally choose me, I don't know if I'm ever going to choose me.
Right.
So I used to work at REI on top of coaching. I coach high school football, boys and girls basketball, track, lacrosse, and I worked at REI and I was a DJ and I was just hustling to make ends meet and to build a savings account and just like do what I could.
Hmm.
All this was a facade to cover, you know, this turmoil of me not really accepting myself and challenging myself. And so at the age of 30, leading up, age of 29, I was like, okay, I need to start hunting. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my hunter safety. It's going to happen. And I signed up. And at that point, I realized just how much I didn't know and how much like hunting
Mhm.
is such a fascinating thing because it's so
Yeah.
legacy driven. It's so
Yeah.
community driven where it's, passed down from one generation to the next. Or I learned it from my
Mhm.
grandpa or my uncle or his dad and their dad and, you know, deer camp and that
Yep.
wasn't that wasn't my story. And so when I chose to go into hunting, I chose a life of self-reliance. And that was something that up until this point I didn't really feel strong in my own life about, which is fascinating. So backing up, when I was 8 years old, my dad took me on my very first backcountry hike, uh, backpacking trip.
Mhm.
Part of the Pacific Crest Trail in the state of Washington, up from Highway 20 all the way down to Lake Chelan. And it was about a 35-mile trip. And I'm just a little, 7, 8-year-old kid.
That's a long way for a little kid.
That's right.
That's a long way from me. I know that's a long way for a little kid.
This was the types of, expectations you just rise to the occasion, and which has
Yeah.
served me well in my life. But on this experience, which I had no idea really what I was getting into, the very first night, my brother and we get into our tent, and it was my father, two uncles, and one of my uncle's friends. Well, one of my uncle's friends is known for drinking alcohol quite a bit, and kids go to bed, dads stay up. I don't know exactly what happened, but the friend pretended to be a bear outside my tent that night. And as a little young impressionable boy, I was scared to death. At that
Yeah.
point, I instantly became afraid of the dark, instantly became scared of bears in the woods, scared of the unknown, and like,
Mhm.
oh, I just wanted the safety and security of my bedroom, my house, all that. Well, that moment would come full circle when I took my hunter safety at 30 years old, and I was coaching high school football. And the only season that was open, state of Washington, like you could small game hunt.
Right. Right.
When a lot of people get into hunting, they're thinking deer hunting or big game. Well, I didn't really have weekends to dedicate towards deer or elk but what I did have is experience backpacking the first 2 weeks of August where I'd go, take a trip with my fishing pole and go backpack with other people. That was the thing. Never solo. I did it one time and it was a weird experience. And obviously now, since I've become a hunter, I can step into that. And I don't want to sound like such a weenie, but this is a part of the courage story that
Right.
that
Right.
I've developed. Well, the only big game season that I had time to dedicate towards hunting, black bear.
Ah.
So August 16th is when football season started. August 1st is when black bear season started. And so I realized, and I had no idea what public lands were. I didn't understand where you could hunt, how you could hunt, like any of this. So I finally, through my resources and networking and online forums and just like hustling down as much information as I can, I find a location and I hike because it was always like, oh, you got to get away from the roads, you got to get away from the crowds, you got to get away from people. And I hiked 9 miles into the backcountry, and that is where I faced my fears and became courageous and really stepped into my own and became a hunter. And I killed my very first animal, which was a black bear, at 30 yards. This bear and we locked eyes right before I shot, like the world went slow motion.
Yeah.
And there's quite a story to go along with that, which I can share here. But that was the moment in which I conquered my fear, all because I chose myself and I chose to step into the unknown. And that was the transforming power of what hunting holds and provides and has the ability to provide for all of mankind.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
did you take that bear on that first hunt?
That was 4 years after taking my hunter safety course before I was able to notch my very first big game tag.
Okay. So you went other times out there during bear season with no luck whatsoever.
Yep, no luck.
So you experienced what most of us do.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
tag suit.
I was wondering if it was beginner's luck. Your first hunt, you went and killed a black bear. I still hadn't killed a black bear.
Yeah.
So I know, sometimes you see these stories of these people in their very first hunt, and they kill a 180-inch buck, or they kill a big old bear, or they, like, I've been hunting for 40 years. I've never killed anything that big. So of course I live in South Carolina where we don't have a big variety, so you did that for 4 years before you were able to actually get one, because then football season started and you were just consumed with football.
Yep. Yep. Well,
Yeah.
here's a little beginner's luck. So this right here, this elk that you can see,
Yeah.
that is my very first archery hunt ever. I took a Pope and Young elk out of the state of Washington.
Well, thank you for joining me here on the show, Johnny. I appreciate it. It's very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
I still haven't killed an elk. I'm over on elk hunts. I've never been on a black bear hunt, but I'm over on elk hunts. I think I'm an elk repellent. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I'm just an elk repellent. Yeah. Of
I mean,
course. Yeah, I've been out there 4 times for them. Always public land, unguided, and still haven't taken one, but I'm not giving up yet.
don't give up. Keep at it.
No,
Keep at it.
I will. I will.
Well, would you mind me sharing the story about the bear hunt?
No, please do.
Okay, so I actually recruited 2 people to go with me on this hunt, and it was newer hunters. One of them was my buddy, and I was like, "Hey, man, you want to start hunting with me?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. I think that'd be great." So I sent him a link to hunter safety. He went about knocking that out. We all went into this hunt, and it was a heat wave, like 95 degrees in the state of Washington. We're all the way up in the mountains. We've seen some bears and some deer like across the canyons, half long ways away, but nothing within range. And so it's like, okay, well, we're seeing animals. We're starting to figure this out. And all of a sudden I hear ruff, 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 ruff. And I'm like, is that a dog barking? And sure enough, a female yoga instructor from Seattle and her 2 male students, along with their dog, come day hiking 9 miles into the backcountry to our location where we are hunting. And this is in the morning time. They show up in the morning, and I'm like, I hiked this far to get away from people, and now I got day hikers and a dog barking, and like
9 miles in. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a long day hike for these
Yes.
people, let alone a long ways for us to go in, not on horseback or any of that. We're just, taking off. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know, maybe this this is how it's gonna turn out. But I like to stay pretty positive. And it was a heat wave, and there's a little watering hole nearby. And so the day goes by, and we're cooling out in the shade, and we're getting ready for the evening hunt. And we're in the water, cooling our feet off. They kind of always kept their distance from us. But finally, towards the evening time, when they were about to head back, they were getting some water. The dog was splashing in the water, and I ended up talking to this yoga instructor, and she's like, "What are you guys doing up here?" I was like, "We're hunting." She goes, "Oh, I was wondering why you were wearing camo. Okay, well, what are you hunting?"
I guess the guns didn't give it away either,
Yeah,
huh?
right.
Yeah.
"Oh, we're hunting black bear." What? You can hunt black bear? Oh yeah. Well, what are you gonna do with it? Well, we're gonna eat it. We're gonna skin it out, process it, take it off this mountain, and go eat it. They're like, man, I didn't know you could do that. They're like, wait, there's bears here in the woods, and I was like, oh baby, you get it. Now. At the time, I was working at REI, or right previously, I might have just stopped working at REI. So this was a type of crowd that I interacted with on the regular. I sold backpacks to these people. It was, oh, what's your next adventure? What are you doing? And all this stuff. And so, I'm talking to this, and stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. And at the same time, there's like the hiking granola crowd, and then you got like your redneck hunters, and and they don't
Yeah.
really mix.
And your yoga instructors that are out on day hikes.
Yeah, exactly. And so she's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know there's bears here. I was like, yeah, you better be careful. Like there's bears in the woods. Now, previously, the nights before, when I get up in camp, I am like nervous. I'm like, oh, do we hang our food? What do I need to do? And I was like, man, I'm here scared of bears in the woods. And at the same time, it would actually be easiest if a bear came into camp. So I could have my gun and shoot it. Like that's the idea of why we're here. So
Yeah.
I was just like conquering fears and at the same time learning how to talk about hunting, which is something that all hunters need to understand, that no matter where you are or where you go, you are always an ambassador for hunting. And
Hmm.
this is a Christian Outdoors podcast. Wherever you go, you're an ambassador for Christ. You are
Right.
always leading with that wherever you go. And
That's right.
so people are always watching, people are always looking, how we carry ourselves.
Yeah.
People watch and they take notice. So needless to say, we're getting ready to make our meals for the evening hunt. They're about to take off, and all of a sudden this lady yells, "Bear!" I'm like, no freaking way did she just yell bear. Give me a break. Like, I just got done talking to her. She's probably
Yeah.
gonna just try to blow the area out. So my two buddies, they grab their guns and they run up to her. And I'm like, I don't believe you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna grab my bino harness, and this is a little connection to my REI granola days. Is my camp shoes were Birkenstocks back before they were trendy. Like I'm Jesus sandals all the way, baby. So I put on my Birkenstocks and I kind of meander up to her. And I'm like, "Did you really see a bear?" And she's like, her face is ghost white, big old eyes, and and she's like, "Yeah." I go, "Where?" She points literally like 80 to 100 yards away from where we are, just across the waterway. And I'm like, that'd be really weird. And we've been having conversations, dogs here,
Hmm.
all this. So I'm like, okay, well, which way did it go? And she points. And so I jog in my Birkenstocks, trying to be safe, catch up to my buddies who have the guns, and they're just standing there looking, and all of a sudden I see the bear pop out. And I go, it's right there, shoot it. And my buddies are like, where? Finally, one of my buddies is like, here, take my gun. So he gives me his gun. I check to see if it's loaded, and I just start sprinting. I believe I actually set a world record for the fastest human ever to chase down a black bear in Birkenstocks.
Yeah. That's probably the only person to ever do it. Yeah. So that's a good record. Yeah.
Right.
Safe. It's a safe record too. Yeah.
I believe it's going to be hard to beat. So I run through. I'm out in the mountains, right? I'm over bushes, across a creek, up a knoll, up. Finally, I run probably about a couple hundred yards, and I just get off, and I just stand there and I wait. Like something inside me, maybe it was God, I don't know, just said stop. And I stopped and I looked, and this black bear popped out of these bushes 30 yards away from me, staring me right in the face. And at that moment, like I preluded to earlier, the world went slow motion.
Super slow motion. Yeah.
I shouldered that rifle. I saw the fear in that bear's eyes, which a lot of hunters don't necessarily talk about, that encounter of like looking an animal into the soul of
Yeah.
what they are. And, I shouldered it, bam, took a shot kind of head on as it was trying to duck down into a creek bed, took off a tip of its ear and put it right in its shoulder blades, and instant death. Heard the death moan, right in front of me. And it was like,
I just killed a bear.
whoa, yeah,
Yeah.
what just happened? Like, is this for real? Like, that yoga instructor seriously spot this animal? Did I,
Wow.
like, and so I'm like, oh my gosh, this bear. And my buddies come join me. And all of a sudden we hear is it safe? Safe? And so they come up and they're like, like, yeah, come look at it. You can touch it if you want, all that stuff. And so at that point, my very first time, like really getting into hunting. Now, and what I mean getting into hunting, I mean, like I'd go on day trips or like,
Hmm.
but like this was my first overnight, I'm going on a hunting trip.
Right.
And that was the moment that not only was I ambassador for hunting, I learned how to talk about hunting. I killed my very first big game animal. I'm 9 miles in the backcountry. I've challenged my courage. I've overcome fears, all this stuff. And then I was like, now what do I do? I've never seen an animal. I've never done an animal.
That's when the work begins, buddy. That's when the work begins. Yeah.
And so I ended up learning some more lessons. Number one is when you got buddies that are with you that want to fill tags as well, you guys have to have a plan beforehand. They ended up staying and hunting. I packed out that entire bear. I only gutted it. I skinned it, the whole hide, the whole bone in bear in my backpack, 9 miles solo,
One
and
trip.
one trip, and ended up rolling my ankle, almost breaking it. Backpack taking me down, like it was just brutal. And then I had to hike 9 miles back into camp to get all my stuff, and
Yeah.
so there was a lot of lessons learned. Anyways, needless to say, at that point, I realized that there had to be a lot of other people out there in this world just like me that need a community of support, that are thirsting for adventure, that need more to this life than what we are getting in the mundane 9 to 5 concrete jungle of, Netflix, the couch, alcohol, like
Yeah.
disassociation of the real world and getting down to what it means to be human and the human experience.
Mhm.
And so from that point, number one, I couldn't wait to just celebrate the success and like, dude, I conquered my fear. And at the same time, it was time to build something. And
Right.
so in 2017, I took to Instagram and I created a social media platform originally called Washington Backcountry.
Okay.
And then that was more of my Field of Dreams moment. If you're familiar with the movie Field of Dreams,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
Build
yeah.
it, they will come. And so I was like, I'm already a DJ. I'm used to hosting events and being on a microphone and talking to people. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
going to throw my own community event. And so I only had 200 followers on Instagram, and 13 people from all over the state of Washington showed up.
Oh
And at that point, I got to have a captive audience and start talking and connecting and building a community of support because at this
yeah.
point, I had no one.
Mhm.
And so, then you start to connect the dots, and it's like a spider web of just like, oh, well, you should need to know this person, and have you talked to
Yeah.
this person, and from there it's like, okay, well, I have a mission, I have a message I want to share, and that is mentorship is conservation. If you want hunting to last for generations to come, you got to invest in the hearts and lives of other people. And
Mhm.
ultimately, what mentorship is love.
Mhm.
Everyone thinks mentorship, well, that's a blanket statement. I retract that. The majority of people think mentorship is taking someone hunting and showing them or setting them up to squeeze a trigger and showing them your
Right.
location. Mentorship, it can be that, but it doesn't mean it is that. And
Mhm.
mentorship is time, energy, resources, investment into other people. And
Mhm.
God calls us to love him and love man. And there's no better way to love a neighbor than to sacrifice your time, your energy, your resources for other people. And so if we
Right.
want hunting to last for generations to come because we believe in the transformative power that it holds, then what better gift than that we can give than to teach somebody to be a provider for themselves and for their families and for
Mhm.
their communities, right?
Mhm.
Give a man a
Mhm.
fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. You give a man a backstrap steak, he'll eat for a night. Teach a man how to get his own, and he'll never go hungry.
It changes his life. It does. Yeah.
100%. And so from that point, that is when I was like, that was like my aha moment of I have something to say and something to give back to this world.
Mhm.
Right. Like a lot of people are like, oh, teachers, it's a selfless act, community service, you're giving, giving, giving. It's like, yeah, but I have something in my own heart, in my own soul that I want to give to the world. And so
Mhm.
when I ended up moving to Texas, I rebranded to Soul Seekers because we're constantly seeking after the souls of others. We're
Right.
seeking after our own soul out in the wild. And
Mhm.
that is my community, and my mentorship is conservation tagline. Hopefully, is my one of my legacy stamps on this world that
Mhm.
I go tomorrow and I get taken. Um, that is a lasting impact on the hunting community, but also
Yeah.
my families and my 3 young boys that are now raised in the lineage of hunting. And, you know,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your story, Johnny, because mine's very similar. My dad didn't hunt, and both grandfathers were deceased before I ever remembered them. I didn't have a mentor either. I took to the woods by reading Gene Hill and Larry Weissoon and Jack O'Connor and all those guys, and the way they would tell their stories captivated me to go out there. Having said that, I have a lot of children, 5, and I've taught all of them how to hunt. And one of the things I told them was, you may not enjoy it, but you're going to know how, because you may pick it up later in life.
yeah,
You're going to understand about safety. I'm going to teach you woodsmanship. I'm going to teach you, you know, whether it's small game squirrels, whether it's deer, turkeys, whatever it is, I'm going to teach you how to do this so that you can, if you want to, continue to pursue it.
yeah,
And I think that's an important thing. I've mentoring a guy who has a hardcore hunter, but he has small children. He's like, man, I can't hunt like I used to because I got these small children. He said, what did you do? I said, for about 20 years, I hunted with them. And
yeah,
what I learned in that, for what it's worth, is when you take a kid hunting, you hunt on their time. When they're
mm,
ready to go, you go. And I can't tell you how many times, like, it's perfect time right now. And we've only been here 40 minutes and it's
yeah,
just getting dusk. The deer are getting ready to move. And they're like, Daddy, I'm just so bored. I'm ready to go. All right. So you pack up and go. Because I learned if you make them stay, they don't want to, they don't want to go back.
yeah,
They just don't want to go again.
yeah,
And so, no more hunting tight in bow stands. I was hunting buddy ladder stands with my children or pop up blinds with them for years. I thought, golly, I got so many kids. This is never going to end, but then when they could start hunting on their own, I'm like, now I can start hunting again the way I enjoy hunting, which I enjoy hunting with my children. Don't get me wrong. Right. And I was there when all of them took their first animal. They've killed deer and pigs and turkeys and everything. And it's awesome. I mean, there's no way to describe that feeling as a dad or a mom when you're sitting there with your child when they take their first animal. I
yeah,
mean, there's just no way to describe it. It is better than any trophy that you ever kill, is being there with them when they do it, and they do it successfully, and
yeah,
they have listened to you through the years and have watched you and all that. It's a great experience. So I encourage all dads and moms who hunt, take your
yeah,
kids as much as you can.
yeah,
um, Now, I'm not the guy who took them at 4 like a lot of people do, or 5 or 6. I waited till they were old enough to have a greater appreciation for what we were doing. We started squirrel hunting. We started small game hunting. Cause that's how I started.
mm,
Uh, we started squirrel hunting, and then we ratchet up, to different animals. And, that's what worked for me. But I love your concept that mentorship is conservation. I really do. And like you said, mentorship can be a phone call with somebody who's just getting started.
yeah,
And hey, Johnny, I'm thinking about getting into archery. Can you recommend a bow?
mhm,
Well, that's a loaded question right there, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
that's like, which caliber is best for killing deer? Oh, well,
mm,
how many articles have been written on that? Right. I saw it on your blog post too. That's why I brought that one up. I've written a ton of articles on there. That was outdoor writer and still am with
yeah,
podcasting. But I can't tell you how many stories I've written on which caliber is best for this animal or that animal or whatever. And the bottom line is the one you shoot the best.
yeah,
The one, the,
100%.
the one you shoot the best. You don't need a 300 Magnum to kill a whitetail. I've killed a lot with the 22 250 and with 243s and 223s, and my favorite's 308 or 7 millimeter 08. Some of those. That's just what I like.
Mhm,
But any of those will take an animal.
yeah,
There's
so,
certain animals you need bigger calibers for pigs. I wouldn't recommend any 20 caliber for pigs. You need to go up to the 30 calibers. And same thing with bears or with moose or elk or whatever. There's just different things. But I'm getting off on a rabbit trail. The point is that, as a listener, you're thinking, well, what can I do as a mentor? I'm working 12 hours a day and I got this family to do, but it can be conversations at work. It can be what we call technical assistance. That's still mentorship. You don't have to take them to your honey hole but you can, right?
It is an option. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
The other thing is with this whole idea of being an ambassador for hunting. You talked about having 5 kids and taking them hunting, and that we encourage fathers and mothers to take their kids hunting.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is how you said when you saw them take their very first animal, it was one of the most like impactful things in your life.
It was.
That
Yeah.
doesn't just extend to when you're a father to a child. When you are a mentor to somebody taking their first animal, no matter what age
Mm-hmm.
they are, that is like the ultimate cherry on top. The
Yeah.
Pope and Young talks about the 5 stages of hunter, right?
Mm-hmm.
That fifth stage being that
Yeah.
stage where you want to pass it on, and you actually find your enjoyment in the outdoors when other people have their success and to be there
Right.
for them. So if we can actually, in that journey of going from, if it flies, it dies, it's brown, it's down, I just want to see something, I just want to fill
Yeah.
a tag, to then I want to fill all my tags, or I want to hold a higher classification or quality of animal or age class.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get to that fifth stage of giving back while at the same time as filling tags, and
Yeah.
that will make you a better hunter. So one thing
It
as a
does.
school teacher, I know for a fact is that when somebody holds mastery of a topic, they can reteach it. And that is how they
Right.
demonstrate mastery. So you want to become a better hunter, you want to become better at anything in life, reteach it to somebody else. Because
Right.
when you can reteach it, that holds you accountable. Everyone, nowadays, like, oh, I need a life coach, or I need a fitness coach, or I need this person to hold me accountable. Hold yourself accountable by reteaching what you know to someone
Right.
else. And you already are going to be sharpening yourself that much more, rather
Yes.
than it being like, oh man, okay, well, and this goes for new hunters, because older hunters been in the game for, let's say, 20 years. Like, oh man, well, how do you go about doing things? Well, I just do what I do because that's just how I've always done it. Rather
Yeah.
than newer hunters who can still be mentors, are like, hey, well, this is what I actually did last season. I flopped. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I've been doing. It's been way more successful. So you can
Yeah.
still mentor people as you are learning. It's a and life, not an or life. It's not
Right.
this or that. It's
Right.
this and that. I get to
Well,
learn how to hunt.
it's like the 5 stages. Excuse me for interrupting. It's like the 5 stages that you talked about. You can be in multiple stages.
Correct.
You don't have to go from 4 to 5. Well, now I can't do this anymore. No, you can still be the person who is passionate about filling tags and mentoring at the same time. You
Correct.
can be the same one who wants to fill all their tags and still be mentoring or whatever. I'm way past the bloodthirsty stage of just killing everything that's down, right? But I also like to eat it.
Mhm.
So I know, and here in South Carolina, we have very liberal limits. So, I mean, it makes it pretty easy, but I know I need 7 deer in my freezer to last me all year because our deer are small,
Yeah,
right? I killed
that's
a mature,
small.
yeah, I killed a mature 8 buck, a mature 8 point buck this year that live weight weighed 103 pounds,
Mm.
right? I mean, our deer are small. Now that's probably the smallest mature buck I've ever killed body size, right? He
Yeah,
had a really nice rack on him. But when I got up to him, I was like, golly, that thing is tiny
yeah,
and he weighed 103 pounds, right? But I've also killed them that weighed, close to 200 pounds. That's about as big as they get here in South Carolina.
yeah,
160, kind of very similar to Texas. They're just smaller deer,
yeah.
right? Um, and I killed one in Kansas that was like pushing 300 pounds. I couldn't even move it,
Right,
you know,
right,
you know.
right.
But the point is, I know I need this many deer to fill my freezer and this many pigs because I hunt pigs too, and so I'm not ashamed to say I have 8 tags, but I need to fill 7 of them so I can put meat in my freezer because that's the only meat I eat besides chicken. Is deer, wild hogs, and chicken. That's the only meat I eat.
Yeah.
So I will buy brats every now and then or get a hamburger every now and then. But you know what I'm saying?
I do. I do.
Yeah, yeah,
There's something I want to say real quick also when
sure.
it comes to the conservation side of things
Hmm.
and us being ambassadors. So a lot of times let's see here. I like to play it off of history. To not say something is to say something, right? So in politics, we've heard of the silent majority, right? Well, there's a majority
Mhm.
of us people out here that believe the same, but we're not speaking up, right?
Right.
Dr. Niemöller in World War II, first they came for the, the gypsies, and I wasn't a gypsy, so I didn't say anything. Or, yeah, I didn't say anything. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for me, and no one was able to speak because there's no one left.
Right.
This is the thing when it comes to conservation: is it's not just us giving our money back to state tags and fish and wildlife and to organizations, critter clubs, and all that. It is impacting how we show up in the world for everyone that sees us and watches us, sees, hey, you know what? That person is a good human being. That's a good
Yeah.
person. And that person loves to hunt. And I don't want to take that away from them. And so, you know what? I don't necessarily love hunting. I don't necessarily want to eat wild meat. I don't necessarily, but I'll vote for that person and what that person loves because of how that person operates in this world.
Right.
And so that's another part of conservation and raising hunters. And I believe in tribal roles, right? Not everyone has to be a hunter, but everyone
Right.
needs to support hunting.
Right. Absolutely.
And
Well
and
said. Well
and
said. Because if we, it goes back to the days because I'm much older than you, but I can remember when there was very few deer here, and whenever you killed one, you drove around town with it hanging on the bed of your pickup trucks and just showing it off, and you pull up to the local gas station. This is before there were Dollar Generals everywhere, and you'd pull up there, and people would come over and talk about it. Well, then it got to be frowned upon driving down, people looking at the dead deer in your back of your truck, and but it's that old thing that one or two people that um, present a bad image for hunters can mess it up for a lot of people.
yeah,
So it's our job as ethical sportsmen to make sure that we hold everybody to the highest standard, that we hold them accountable to. You're hurting all of us, right? You're making the entire sport activity lifestyle look bad because of the way you're presenting yourself, because you're killing too many turkeys, or because you're poaching, or because of this, whatever. And it's a very something we all have to be very conscious of, is how we present ourselves as hunters
yeah,
and outdoorsmen in general, not just hunters, but I'm a trapper also.
yeah.
You talk about something gets a bad name because of Walt Disney is trappers.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
I'm telling you, it is a really tough hurdle to get over. Is oh well, how many times have I heard when I'm asking people for permission to trap? Well, they're just indiscriminate. You're gonna catch everything that comes by. No, I'm not, because I know what I'm doing. Okay.
Right.
And yeah, because I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to catch. And if I do catch somebody's dog that should be in their yard, right, I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing. It's not going to break the skin. It's not going to hurt their foot. It's just going to hold them. And
Yep.
I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
So
People love catch and release fishing, right? Like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
that's what trapping is.
It
You
is.
get to let something go at the end
Yeah. If you want to. Yeah.
if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. But, wow, this is, um, I want to speak on something on conservation real quick,
Yeah.
because our turkey season is opening this week. And in South Carolina and in lots of parts of the South, the turkey population has plummeted. As an example, 2 years ago, I had 7 longbeards walking on my property that we saw all the time. I just did a 2-mile loop around the property. Didn't see the first turkey track. Didn't see the first bit of scratching. There's no feathers. There's nothing. There's no sign of turkeys at all on the property that I've been hunting for 20 plus years. And we used to be covered up in turkeys.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of reasons why. But I want to say to the listeners out there is that one of the things that's happening here in South Carolina is we've been reducing our limits. We used to have a limit of 5 birds. Now, last year it was 3. This year it's 2. And people are going crazy. Why can't you can't? Why can't I kill more than 2 turkeys? Because there's no more turkeys like it used to be. I grew up in the good old days of turkey hunting,
Wow.
thank goodness. But if we don't manage that, if we don't conserve our resource, then we're not going to be able to pass on that legacy to the next generation. There's
Yeah.
not going to be any birds to hunt. There's just not. I mean, it is just shocking that I could go out here any morning and hear 9, 10 different gobblers on the roost. I haven't heard one yet this year.
Mm.
Not the first one. I go out almost every morning and listen. I haven't heard the first one.
Yeah.
And it's very discouraging. I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do opening day, which
It's,
opens on April 3rd here.
it's
Yeah.
disheartening.
Yeah. It's very disheartening.
Yeah.
Very disheartening.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is.
And
It
that's
really
the
is.
thing is, like, we as hunters, we take what we can, which is good for the land. We're not taking an abundance, right?
Right.
And
Right.
at the same time, like, we need to be proactive into taking care of our resources. So I am new to private land hunting. I grew up out west, public land
Right.
hunting, all that, and now I am hunting a small 160-acre lease that only has so many critters. And if I go out and, because everything seems like is open year round here in the state of Texas, if I want to go clean out all the coons, I can, but then that's not good for the ecosystem of my lease, right?
Yeah.
Everything has order and relation, just like what God talks about is he sees this and it is good. And so we want that diversity, and
Yeah.
that creates a healthier environment ecosystem for these animals
It
and
does.
habitat. And so, but that's not how hunters are viewed, right? Like, oh, you're
Right.
thirsty, you kill everything that you see. It's like, well, I don't know. What's your definition of hunter? And this is where, as human beings and as Americans, we need to actually understand definitions of words. And
Yeah.
freedom of speech is the First Amendment, number one. And that is because the power of life and death abides in the tongue. And what we say and what we speak and how we show up in this world has the ability to bring life, give life, or take and death. And a lot of people won't speak up and correct, right?
Mhm.
We need to be able
Right.
to correct the misspeakings.
Right.
Actually, no, you're not correct in what you're saying. That's
Yeah.
not true. Let me tell you what is. And
Yeah.
actually know what it is we're operating in. And that's one of the things that, as us hunters, we need to take more pride in, is knowing about hunting, knowing.
Educate ourselves on the history of hunting and how hunting has saved so many species
Yeah,
and how that took place and about the Robertson Pittman Act and how we tax ourselves beginning in 1933, and all that. By educating the public on our knowledge of what hunting really is and how good it is for species, then we're able to get that silent majority on our side.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Well, Johnny, I mean, we could go on and on. Obviously, we're both talkers, right? Because we're podcasters. Okay. But I like to keep this to an hour ish or so, hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going ahead and transition now to the faith side of our story that we do here at Christian Outdoors Podcast. When I like to ask my guests to share their faith story. You mentioned that you grew up in church. So would you mind sharing your entire faith story from growing up in church to how it impacts you now?
yeah. That's a great question, because a lot of people, I believe inward reflection leads to outward correction. And that's from my brother Lucas. He's a phenomenal human being, and if I was to say uh, my number one person that I want to model myself after in this world, it would be my brother. He's just super amazing. But him saying inward
That's what my brother says about me.
yeah, right. Well, I only have one other brother, and he's my older brother, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
the
I,
youngest.
I have an older brother and an older sister. I'm the youngest. I said that's what my brother says about me. So if he ever hears this, he'll be like, "What are you talking about?"
I love it. Well, so going back, and this ties into the hunting story of, like, I always did stuff for other people. I never
Mhm.
had my own story, my own, like, like, I went to church because my parents went to church. I I had a faith life of praying to God and reading the Bible because that was what I was supposed to do,
Mhm.
rather than choosing it,
Right.
right? And saying, No, this is what I want.
Hmm.
So, I had a lot of challenges with my faith, and I had a lot of moments in my youth and childhood where prayers were answered, and God showed up to be real in my life. But that was also in a state of turmoil. Like, I actually don't have a relationship with my father anymore. I don't speak with him.
Hmm.
He's never even met my youngest son. And this is like, you want to keep it to an hour, so I got to be brief. There is a whole story of faith, and my dad led worship in the church, and like what I envisioned the quote unquote Christian church and narrative to be. I also felt I saw a bunch of lies and not truth, and look good on Sunday, but as soon as we're in the car heading home from church, it's my parents at each other's throats, and like, hey, this doesn't seem like love. This doesn't seem like God's in the center of this. And so, really, in college, where a lot of people lose their faith, I started to question really what was real and what was important, and but I held on and I held on, and well, when I hit my mid 20s and I was single, up maybe upper 20s, and I eventually wanted a family, or I thought I wanted a family. Like, I
Yeah.
knew I didn't want to be alone, and,
Right.
and I wanted a wife, I wanted a spouse, and there became a time where I was like, okay, well,
So you went to teachersonly.com
you're
well,
right. I was like,
that's only farmers. That's only farmers that
yeah,
have their own. That's
exactly.
not fair.
I was like, well,
Yeah.
if I can't lead myself in a godly walk, how can I be the head of a household and lead my family in a godly walk? And so it is at that exact same time I had a couple parents from my basketball team that I was coaching, which was a middle school 8th grade boys basketball team, asked me if I wanted to lead a middle school version of Young Life for their kids, and actually to do a Bible study with them at their home, not associated with anything else. Now, these
Mhm.
were students that I had in my class day in and day out, and I
Yeah.
was coaching. And so there was like, man, that's a really interesting dynamic of like them knowing me on a real personal level,
Yeah.
uh, rather than it just being, hey, coach, or Mr. Mack, or this teacher student dynamic. And at that point, that was a turning point for me in my faith life. It was like, okay, well, just like how we have to know hunting to share it, I have to know God and I have to know Bible to be able to share it. And so I went through and I started, I remember the very first Bible study I did was, who is God? Who is God?
Yeah.
What is God? And went from there. And then at that point, that was when I was like, okay, if I'm going to be able to lead my family someday, I got to be able to lead myself. And that's when I had a moment when I wrestled with God spiritually in my bedroom, just bawling my eyes out. And I was like, there's got to be more to this life. Either you are real and you're going to show up, or you're not real and I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to live my life without guilt or shame or any of this, because I can't have one foot in over here and one foot in, right? God says you either need to be hot or cold, or I'll spew you out of my mouth.
Right.
And so it was like, okay. So it wasn't less than 5 months later, I ended up meeting my wife. And it was love at first sight. Bought a ring 2 weeks later. We were married in under 5 months.
Oh, wow.
3 boys. We've been married 12 years. But that was really like the a huge moment in my relationship with God, was understanding that, well, you have to acknowledge and not be afraid to acknowledge the challenging things in life, and call on God like he's real. I
Mhm.
started praying out loud verbally and reading the Bible verbally out loud, because I always would do things in my head. And when we do things in our head, a lot of people like, well, is that even getting outside my head? Is this real?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I can tie this into like, like Eastern religion type concepts and new age of like vibrations, right? Like in order to speak creates that vibration into the energy of the world, and it makes it real.
Mm-hmm.
It just stays in our mind. I
Well,
question, is it
uh,
even, you know?
and there's that's true with a lot of things, because if some of these what do they call them, motivational speakers will say things like, if you articulate what your goals and dreams are, you're more likely to do them, and if you write them down, you're even more likely to achieve them. So there's a lot of value, as you said, Johnny, in speaking these things and in praying out loud and in reading scripture out loud, because you have to, your brain can't wander when you're reading when you're reading to yourself. If you're reading out loud,
Yeah,
your brain has to focus on what you're doing.
right.
Right.
Yeah, and going back to the book of Genesis, God didn't think, "Let there be light." He didn't think in his head.
Oh, that's good.
He
That's
spoke,
good.
"Let there
Yeah,
be light."
that's good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And that was a real turning point in my life, where it was God became real, and he became real because I treated him like he was real, right? Like we
Hmm.
always say, it's a relationship with God. No, yay, do you have a relationship with God? Do you know God? Well, if you don't treat that relationship like it's real, then are you going to have a real relationship? For example, you and I are on this podcast, and if I'm just sitting here and in my head I'm talking to you, but just in my head, this is going to be the worst podcast in the world, or you and I are never going to actually have a real relationship.
That's right.
All I'm
Yeah.
ever doing is keeping it in my head.
Yeah.
Right? A father to a son, only that son only knows 100% that his father loves him when his father speaks to him. I love you.
Right.
Not just, hey, I've always loved you. I'm sorry I've never said that to you.
Right.
And there, that is the realness and the power of what our relationship with God is, when we treat it like it's actually real.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an important point that you made about fathers to their children. Tell them you love them. Don't assume that they know, or
Yeah.
don't make them assume that you love them. You make sure that they know that you love them, because at the end of the day, when you're dead, you're going to be forgotten about by
Yeah.
you're in a generation and a half. You're
Mhm.
just a name on the stone at that point.
Yeah.
The only legacy we have as dads is leading our children into relationship with God, so they can lead their children and they can lead their children. And then also they know that they are loved. They don't ever have to wonder, my daddy loves me, because he tells me and shows me that he loves me.
100%.
And when you have grown children that still call you daddy and not just dad, it's different. It's different. It really is, because they know that I love them, and your boys know that you love them, because we tell them and we show them. We don't just show them, we tell them and we show them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing that we have, the power of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, going off of the Bible and quoting Mahatma Gandhi, he said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Well, if you want
Right.
to see the change, and if that change is sharing the gospel of Christ, or if that change is sharing the gospel of hunting, which is
Right.
what Soul Seekers is all about, or if your goal is to be the best husband and the best father and the best employee, it takes communication, because
Mm.
communication is the key to every successful relationship.
It is.
And the
It is.
power of the tongue either
Yep.
brings life or takes death.
Well, I
And
mean, the book of James talks about, no one can tame the tongue. Be careful what you say. And I think it's in Timothy where it says, don't let any harsh words come out of your mouth, or any off color jokes or anything like that. I mean, we have to carry ourselves to a standard
Mhm.
as men, that if we want to be considered godly men, there's a standard that we have to meet. And that is that God comes first, and then everything else is after that. And we can't just pretend that. We have to live it all the time, every single day.
Yeah.
Right. This morning at church, our pastor, this is a Sunday when we're recording this, listeners, our pastor was talking about the fruit in the vine. Right. We know our fruit because of the supernatural power of God that we are in a relationship with. Without that relationship, we can't produce fruit. And it's our fruit that other people see.
Yeah.
It's our fruit that other people see. It's what we produce by carrying ourselves in a godly manner all the time.
Yeah.
And that's hard at times. It's hard when you got a Karen screaming at you at a red light or something, or, or as a coach, I've coached high school as well. And you got these parents who think they got Aaron Judge, son named Aaron Judge. And I don't care how expensive the bat is, he still can't hit the ball. Right. So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But it's hard at times to deal with that. But as long as we remember that we are men of God, and that God is on our side, then we can always engage that from the right perspective.
Yeah. 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 It's easy to know. It says in the Bible, a tree will be known by the fruit it bears, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either that fruit be good or that fruit be bad.
That's right.
And so, for us, and that's one of the things, like, I think hunting has such a beautiful intertwining with our faith life is,
Mm-hmm.
in order to us to have a good faith life, we have to have vision. And it says in the Bible that people without, or for a lack of vision, the people perish.
Right.
Right.
Right. Proverbs. Yeah. Yeah.
And so if we don't have vision, death is awaiting.
We're doomed. Yeah. We're doomed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we need to have vision also in our faith, right? To have faith now for the future.
Mm-hmm.
That ties into hunting, where we conserve thousands of the humans for the future.
That's
Because
right.
without vision,
That's right.
the people, the animals, the habitat, it all perishes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Johnny Mack with Soul Seekers. Tell people how they can find you on social media and find your podcast.
I appreciate that, brother. You can go to my website at soulseekersnation.com. That is a website that will take you to all the different podcast platforms, as well as my show. You can find, I'm about to launch season 5 of Soul Seekers Show on Carbon TV. So if you want to follow along with my hunts, some hunts are mentored hunts where we're taking people on brand new experiences, and some hunts are just mine because I'm still new on this journey of experiencing hunts and hunting through its own thing. So you can go to Carbon TV, look up Soul Seekers. The podcast is on the podcast channel. The show, the video content is on the video content. I have a YouTube channel, Soul Seekers Nation. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and X. And just very grateful for being able to be on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Johnny. I appreciate it.